we've met or not, I just want to extend my heartfelt love and concern to each of you wherever you're at. I know it's been a very challenging year for many, and many of us just want to feel wrapped up in a nice warm blanket and hugged, and I'm hoping that I can send that energy to you today, and that through this presentation that you'll feel of my sincerity and care for each of you and my desire for all of you to be able to move forward in your business. So today my topic is moving from burnout to Onfire, and I can tell you that I've had experience with this. I was one of the lucky people, I guess, who got to enroll in doTERRA in 2008, which means that I've been working this business for coming up on 13 years over this summer. And it has been quite an experience of ups and downs. I've certainly had those times in my life where I've wanted to quit my doTERRA business, where I've been frustrated, exhausted with team members and situations that have been hard and challenging, and doing that all the while raising a family. So when I first enrolled in doTERRA, I had children between the ages of 11 and 17. Now fast forward 13 years, I have all those children are grown, and I have 5 grandchildren, and it's an entirely different stage of life. And I've also had to go through the normal ups and downs of aging in that process and trying to figure out how to work with myself through the process. Needless to say, many of you are in the same boat as me. You've been around for a while, or maybe you're still new to doTERRA, but you're working under difficult and challenging circumstances in your own personal lives where you feel just exhausted and burnt out. So let's jump into talking about some solutions to solving burnout and how you can move forward and be happy and successful despite it. So let's look first at what the Mayo Clinic has to say about what burnout actually really is. So according to the Mayo Clinic, burnout is a special type of work-related stress. And from a clinical perspective, burnout is something that can cross over and show up in the mental health field in forms of stress and anxiety and so forth, and even lead to some cases of depression. So it is something that we definitely want to look at resolving, and it's important to take note. While it's not a diagnosis and any diagnostic tools for psychologists, it certainly is something we pay attention to because it can lead someone down that path. So take a look at the diagnosis here, qualities. If you're suffering from physical and emotional exhaustion that involves a sense of reduction of accomplishment and a loss of personal identity. So look inside yourself and think, gosh, am I tired? Am I physically and emotionally exhausted? And am I losing my sense of personal identity? If so, then you might be clinically labeled as experiencing official burnout. Now, there are some questions that you can ask yourself to further define it, but I think you probably know who you are and know if you're experiencing it. So what does the Mayo Clinic say about how to solve that? Well, it's really interesting because the Mayo Clinic offers the same advice that we offer as doTERRA wellness advocates to solving our solutions for burnout. So they recommend exercise, eating right, getting good sleep, practicing mindfulness, taking breaks, and staying away from what I call the bad boys, which are alcohol, caffeine, sugar, processed foods, and any kind of drug use. So isn't this almost look to you like the wellness pyramid at doTERRA? Isn't this exactly what you do in your business? So the obvious is there. Yes, it is. And just a little bit of advice for you. Like any kind of an athlete or let's say model or actress or even a surgeon who uses their hands for surgery, your body becomes a part of your business. So a surgeon may insure their hands so that if they can't work anymore, they still have a living. An actress or an actor may need to keep their body in tip-top shape and look good in order to get the part. Let me just tell you that at doTERRA, we need to be living by the wellness pyramid in order to have our business work for us. we will and suffer potentially burnout if we don't. And also, people are just attracted to people who look and feel good. And if you're living and walking your talk, it is going to make a difference in how successful and how thriving your business is. So this isn't coming just from me, it's coming from the Mayo Clinic. These are actually what the Mayo Clinic offers as far as solutions for burnout itself. Basically your live guide. So go back to your live guide. But I want to dig a little bit deeper into burnout and give you maybe some more solutions that might help you at doTERRA. So first, let me just tell you my story, what happened with me. So I found myself last year, end of 2019, sick for about a month. I was exhausted. I was tired. I had very little interest in my doTERRA business and what I had created, and I knew it. I knew it, and I was willing to talk about it. And my husband has said for years, he's walked around the house saying, "You never shoot the milking cow." This is the advice he's given to my kids and to me. And basically what he means by that is a good farmer never shoots his milking cow, aka if you have any kind of a business that's producing any kind of productive benefits for you, you don't want to sabotage that. And so as I laid sick in my bed or on the sofa, by the way, this is pre-COVID, so I didn't have COVID at the time. I was just sick and burnt out. And I thought about that. Do I want to sabotage my doTERRA business? Obviously, I have a very productive business. It's a very nice milking cow. So do I really want to ruin that? And in my journey of finding solutions, of course, I drew back onto my years of mental health experience and coaching and providing support for so many clients over the years, helping people to up level. So I had a lot of tools in my toolbox to sit and kind of work with myself. Well, number one, I knew I was not a victim to my circumstance, and that's because no one ever is. If you ever feel like you're a victim to your circumstance, then you are in trouble, because that's the moment you lose power to change your circumstance. It's when you take full responsibility for what's going on that you actually have power. So I knew, don't go into blaming, don't go into finding fault with leaders, corporate, anywhere I wanted to find blame, the economy, the politics, whatever. You can't go there. You have to come back to number one if you want to make personal changes. So I steered myself back to me. And that led me to a coaching session with Jeremy from Strength Finders. Many of you heard Jeremy speak before on stage. And this was a suggestion that actually came from my upline, which I'm so grateful for. She set that up for me. And I did a coaching session with him. And in this session, he gave me a test to take prior. And when I got onto the session with him, we looked at the results of the little short quiz he sent me. And I found I was failing. In fact, I had very, very low marks. And he was very honest with me. He said, "I don't see you really thriving or even growing your doTERRA business in a year. In fact, I would be surprised if your business does anything in the next year based upon your scores." And that was kind of a hard hit. But the conversation didn't end on a down note. Of course, Jeremy took me through my strengths and had me look at the things that I had to offer my business. And he approached my business almost like looking at my strengths, at least this is how I took it, like cards in a card game. Let's just imagine your strengths are all on little individual cards, and you're playing the card game with the certain same 3 or 4 cards that you always play with. But perhaps there are other ways to play those same cards, or maybe pairing them with other cards, aka other strengths. So I drifted down even below my top 10 strengths, because remember, all your top strengths are all strengths. They're all 34. Even if they're on the bottom of the list, they're still strengths, and you can pull them up from the bottom and try to use them if you like. And he explained to me that even to the top 15, I could probably have some really good impact by just picking different strengths to play with. And that was a fun idea for me. In fact, it led me to look at how I may have neglected using certain strengths because maybe I had belief systems around them, like I wasn't allowed to use competition because that wasn't a good thing to do, or I communication is one of my strengths, and so I had to look at what I believed around communication and if I could figure out a different way to use it because it is important to me. It is one of my top strengths. So revisiting strengths became a big part of my strategy for pulling myself out of being a victim. And that will always be the case for you. You can make powerful personal change by reeling back to your strengths. And I know we talk about it a lot at doTERRA, but it is true that your strengths, even all the way to the top 15 of your strengths, can be very fun for you and they can energize you. So while you're living the doTERRA lifestyle more, you're going back to your live guide and using that as a solution to really improve, then go back to your strengths and look at your top 15 and consider how you could play the game of doTERRA differently using different cards from your deck. And I took that away from my meeting with Jeremy and it was really powerful. Now, moving forward, what else did I do? Well, I love to read and study, and I love self-help books, and I love to see what the authors are coming out with. And I found a good one called The Catalyst. And The Catalyst talked about how to make changes, and I pulled some important concepts out of that book that I'd like to share with you today that I think are important to look at. They're roadblocks that you want to consider avoiding or finding ways to navigate as you make personal changes. So the first one I want to point you to is the natural human instinct that we have to push back. We love to push back on anyone who's pushing us. You've been doing it since you were a teenager, and trust me, you're still doing it as an adult. If somebody's telling you what to do, your instinct is to push back. Now, some of you might be more inclined to do what others are asking you to do, and others of you may have that little flair that says, don't tell me what to do. I have a few children like that, so I'm very familiar with that pushback. It's important for you to understand that you push back, though. That's what we want to look at. So how are you pushing back from moving forward? Is your growth at doTERRA something you feel like that someone else is expecting you to do or needs you to do or pushing you to do, and you feel that someone is yanking you there, and then your natural instinct is to push back? Examine that and see if that's happening in your life, because you want to be able to know that you're moving forward for you. So bottom line, this whole solving your burnout, it has to be your choice to move forward, and you have to want it. You, number one, you. Okay, roadblock number 2 that's important to look at. This is when you do what you always did. And this, you know the saying, if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. We have an aversion to change as humans. We don't like to do things differently. And so a lot of burnout happens when you pick up habits over your experience at doTERRA and you just keep doing what you always did. And then you're going to burn out, because that's normal for you to want to do what you always did, but growth really happens when we do new things, when we take on new approaches. Again, why using your different strengths is actually very helpful in climbing yourself out of burnout, because you want to do things differently. So think on that. How can you work with yourself to change and be okay with that and resist that human instinct to be averse to change? Another roadblock we run into, and that is when we do resist that change and when change is uncertain. So look at the uncertainty that you may fear about doing things differently and examine that and warm up to the idea that change is actually really, really good. How can you become comfortable with changes in your life and to your business that doesn't feel like a big change? So the way I look at that is, if you can establish habits that are very small but have big impact, you will follow through with them and it will feel really good. So examine not how you're going to overhaul your whole business. This is not the time, if you're burnt out, to look at an entirely new strategy of operation. It's the time to look at your business and say, how am I going to make some small and simple changes that will have less lasting impact, because it is through small and simple things that big things happen. So you want to stay focused on changes that are small, because we are averse as humans to change, and then you'll be more likely to follow through with them and you won't feel so burnt out. Last roadblock to look for: if you can't collaborate and have relationships that are working for your business, you are going to struggle. And that's just the way it is. So you've got to be able to have influence in your team. And so the more people you can collaborate with, and the more you can pull your teams in directions that work for them and for you, it will improve your business regardless of what your strengths are. We are wired as humans to work in communities, and regardless of our strengths, we want to work together and collaborate. So how can you collaborate better? And keep in mind some of the other roadblocks I just mentioned, like that human instinct to push back. So you can't push people to work with you. You have to inspire them to work with you. You have to create an environment where people want to come in to work with you. And again, your live guide, walking your talk, is going to create an environment for people to be more attracted to that mission. And then look at how you can position your strengths to be a better influencer and maybe a little bit better at collaborating. Pull some of those strengths out of your top 15 that will help you to be able to collaborate more. Because at doTERRA, any kind of growth is going to come through team effort, through collaboration. So I'd love for you to take everything I just talked about and make a new strategic plan for this new year, for 2021. And I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but I want you to first of all, get out those strengths, imagine them as a card game. You can even, if you're really creative and you want to create little cards, you can, and look at how you can play those strengths. Also dig into your strength finders and look at the weaknesses that go with each strength, and make sure that you're not positioning a strength but actually falling into the weakness of that strength. You want things to work for you, not against you, and you can be very strategic about how you use your strengths to succeed. And then watch out for those roadblocks, pay attention to all of them so that you can collaborate better, you can make those small and simple changes, you can have your own free will working in the process, and you can guide your team to deal with the fact that we are averse to change and start to make those shifts that will pull you out of your rut, including the physical changes in your habits and lifestyle. Lastly, I want to talk about probably one of the most impactful things that you can do, and that is to be grateful. Gratitude is literally a powerful strategy to utilize in every aspect of your life. And I know you've been told probably for years to keep a gratitude journal, and certainly many of us grew up with moms who said be grateful, be thankful all the time for the things that we have, and that is really, really good advice. And while many of us in our deepest, darkest hour do not want to think of the things that we're grateful for because we are averse to that, if we can just nudge ourselves down that path, you'll quickly find that everything starts to turn around. Gratitude has some incredible research behind it, including that it helps to shift relationships, it helps to shift physical health, it has so many psychological benefits, including helping us to increase our empathy and improve our tendency to be aggressive in our behavior. Grateful people sleep better, grateful people have higher self-esteem, grateful people have more mental strength. So gratitude may be your secret ninja tool to use to get yourself out of the rut that you're in. So practice gratitude. Wayne Dyer said the universe provides abundantly when you're in the state of gratitude. So remember that milking cow? You don't want to sabotage the milking cow. Not at all. That milking cow is working for you. It's providing so much in your life. You would have never wanted to live without your doTERRA products throughout this last pandemic. Even if all you're doing is earning the money to get those products paid for and provide them for your families, that is a milking cow you never want to get rid of. I want you to think about the time that we're living in right now. all the world is struggling financially, physically. So many people need what we have at doTERRA. If you came to this business because you're a healer, because you wanted to make a difference in the world, because you care about humanity, you're in the right place. And now is not the time to curl up in a ball on your sofa and give up and be negative. Now is the time to pull yourself out, because you are empowered to do that. You are the only one who can make changes in your life to this degree, and you can do it even now. And if you want to fulfill that purpose, now is the time. You were literally made for this moment. We've been over a decade in preparation to go out as an army throughout the world and to make worldwide change. So I give you full permission to tell your story of burnout. It's okay. It's not something to be ashamed of. If you're feeling burnt out, it's totally fine. But the best part of it is that you have power to change that. You don't have to shoot your milking cow. You can apply these principles and you can make those changes in your life. And I'm here for you. I'm with you. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share with you my experience and to invite you to make these same changes in your life. Thanks so much for having me, and enjoy your leadership conference.